What's up, hoe bags? Welcome back to another episode of Bacon and Bacon with Bacon. I've already been pre-gaming a little bit, so forgive me if I fuck any of this up. Today we have really exciting news. That's right, bitches. I got a motherfucking KitchenAid mixer. One of my subscribers, which are all family and friends at this point, gave me a KitchenAid mixer. Thank you, Mom. You are the shit. I love you. So today, because we have a KitchenAid mixer, we just had to make bread. We're gonna make, well, not bread, a special bread, but we are gonna make like a roll. Not sure what to call it yet, but it's gonna be cake. So the first step to this is heating up 1 1/4 cup of water and getting it in your bowl and mixing it up with some sugar. And then we're gonna add yeast, which is going to proof in that water for a few minutes. And then we're gonna get started on mixing everything else together. And we're gonna use the mixer today. All right, so I've preheated my water and I've used my thermometer to make sure it's right around 110 degrees. And so we're just gonna add this in the bowl. And then we're gonna add our sugar to that bowl straight away and stir that up. Now that that's in there, we're gonna check the temperature one more time. Make sure it's safe to drop that yeast in there. You don't wanna hurt the yeast. They're like creatures, you know? Okay, so that is perfect. It's at 107 degrees. The yeast will be fine with that. We're gonna add the yeast. And now we're just gonna let it sit and proof for a minute, and then we'll hook it into the mixer, and we'll start adding other ingredients and playing with this mixer. So the yeast is all proofed up. Basically, all the yeast went from the bottom of the bowl, and it's now floating on the surface of the bowl. And so now the next step is we are going to add the salt and the butter. I'm gonna pop the butter in there and then let that butter soften before I add the salt. I have this weird feeling that salt hurts yeast, but I could be completely wrong. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add the salt, and I've already measured out the first stretch. It's 1.25 cups of flour. Ooh, it's mixing up good. And now that it's been mixed up quite well, here, I'll show you what it looks like. Now we're gonna start adding this flour a little bit at a time, a cup at a time. I've never done this before, so bear with me here. Oh, it's starting to turn into like a flour, looking like a dough. It's fucking awesome. We're just gonna use the rest of this. That works. Now we're gonna let that do its thing. And then afterwards, we're gonna shut this thing off and we're gonna put this hook up on this bitch. And what this hook is gonna do is actually knead the dough for us. And it looks like that's about where we're at. So, now that I have this, I don't have to use my hands nearly as much. So here are a list of things that I could use my hands for now that I don't have to use them for bread. I could smoke weed. I could draw a picture. I could load weed into a bowl. I could roll a joint. I could roll a blunt. I could take a dab. There are so many things that I could do now that I have hands free. Thanks, Mom. All right, hoe bags. Now we've got ourselves some dough. That took next to no effort. So now that this is kind of like dough, what I'm gonna do is add a tiny bit more flour, and we're going to take this hook off, this paddle off, and we're putting the hook on. Now what this hooker does is it kneads the dough for us. It needs dough, like Nancy Pelosi needs to cheat when she trades stocks. And so what we're gonna do is reattach this And then I'm gonna throw a tiny bit more flour in there, and when we're off to the races, kneading this bitch. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That fucking hooker is working hard. That's just beautiful. That's just beautiful. I'm gonna let that go for probably like 3 minutes. And then I'm gonna pull that thing out and get it ready to rise in a bowl. You know, I reckon that since I'm the one that's making this hooker work so hard, I guess that makes me a pimp, a bread pimp, which I'm fine with, because bread's delicious when it's homemade. All right, bread pimp here. I am going to rinse this bowl out. We're gonna spray some nons. Actually, I don't even need to rinse it out. That thing like really did a good job. So we're gonna spray this bowl down with some avocado, aka avocado spray. And then what we're gonna do is drop this wad of dough in there and then flip it over so that the top surface has oil on it and the bottom does. And then we're gonna put it in a warm spot, cover it with a damp towel. Y'all know the routine if you've seen the cinnamon hose video, so. Here comes the dogs. They think that's whipped cream. Bam. So now the top of that is nice and oily. I've got oil edges so that when this shit does rise, and it will rise, it doesn't get all super sticky to the pot, to the pan, to the bowl, whatever the fuck it is. So now I'm gonna get a damp cloth, a moist or cloth or a moist paper towel. And that moist paper towel is gonna go on top of this. And we're gonna let it chill for like probably 30, 45 minutes, let it really rise. Moist cloth over the top of the bowl, just like that. Hot tip of the day, if you're looking for a kind of a warm, cozy spot to put your bread to help it rise a little faster, I put mine on the oven because I've already preheated my oven at 350 degrees. So the top of the oven is kind of, you know, the stove top is nice and warm. I set it on the stove top with the fucking moist towel on top of it. And I don't fucking touch it or look at it for about 45 minutes. Okay? All right, no bags. The dough is ready. It is risen. It is risen. So we're gonna just kind of beat this down a little bit, and then we're gonna drop it onto this board here and do some serious kneading. Now we roll it out. Okay, so we've kind of seen this video before. This is very similar to the start of making cinnamon toast. So we're gonna start with some softened butter. We're gonna layer the whole thing in softened butter, and then we'll start adding our ingredients. All right, the first ingredient we're gonna add is some dehydrated minced garlic. We're just gonna kind of sprinkle it throughout the whole thing. We're just building it like it's a cinnamon roll. And then the next step is some Parmesan cheese. I would say probably a half a cup of this, but just eyeball it, bug it. And then we're gonna go with some chopped parsley and shallots. Grind those up real good. And then we're going to do the 2 strips of thick cut bacon that I made earlier. Or 3 strips, I'm sorry, not 2 strips. Never go too light with the bacon. And then, last but not least, we're gonna sprinkle this fresh cut basil throughout the whole thing. Boom. And then I'm gonna do just a tiny bit more Parmesan just for good measure. Maybe get it to stick to the bacon. and the basil that I just made there. And we're gonna roll this bitch up like a blunt. Alright, we're gonna grease this pan. Bam. And then we're gonna cut this bitch. Maybe sprinkle a little salt. And it's ready for the oven. We're gonna make an egg wash for these bad boys. So basically what we've done is just put an egg into a small glass bowl, add about a tablespoon or half a tablespoon even of water or milk. Whip the shit out of it like it owes you money. And then we're gonna paint it on the surface of this before we drop it in the oven. All right, now that we're all egg washed up, we're gonna put this bitch in the oven. Got about 10 minutes left. All right, that's it, bitches. Thank you for watching this episode of Bacon and Bacon with Bacon. I truly appreciate it. Remember, nobody likes a dickhead. Make sure you like and subscribe. This is what we made today, and it smells amazing. Peace out, bitches.